This episode of Sports Caffeine is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-belt grooming. Manscaped offers precision engineering tools for your family jewels. They obsess over their technology developments to provide you the best tools for your grooming experience. Go to manscaped.com and get 20% off plus free shipping with the code SC2020. Your balls will thank you. And now, Sports Caffeine.
It's time to wake up, recover from last night's mess, and get your fix of sports caffeine. It's time to kickstart your day with the latest sports news and opinions. Get ready. Sports Caffeine is live in 3, 2, 1.
Good morning and welcome back to another episode of Sports Caffeine. I'm Kaylee Chakosky and I'm here with Elle Bushman and Chip. How are you guys doing this morning?
Here comes Santa Claus. Here comes Santa Claus. Santa Claus Lane.
I'm so glad you brought up Christmas.
I'm doing a little. Look, it's getting around to the best time of the year. Elle Bushman.
Christmas doesn't need to be celebrating until after Thanksgiving.
That is not true.
That should be a law.
No, the day after Halloween, so November 1st until the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, that's Christmas.
No.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that's Thanksgiving. Back to Christmas.
No, first of all, I want to know what was a tough one with Dean.
We had a chime in probably about the Tampa game. We'll get into that.
Well, guys, yeah. Dean Jensen is Ryan Jensen's father. That is Dean Jensen, the center.
So that was a tough one, yes.
Yes, that was a tough one. But no, Christmas should be starting. Everything for Christmas should be after Thanksgiving. Once Turkey Day is done, Christmas time. That's it. Don't celebrate it. Don't start putting out decorations after Halloween. No.
But what's in between Halloween and Thanksgiving? Because Thanksgiving's not a
Black
holiday
Friday.
You get hype. No, Black Friday is after Thanksgiving.
It's after Thanksgiving.
No,
so literally the day after Thanksgiving. That's what Black Friday is.
Well, now since companies are doing their early Black Friday stuff, then
it's taking the joy out of it.
That's marketing aspect. But I got to tell you, just because of the year we've had in 2020, I'm looking for any excuse. Yeah, to celebrate something happy and something good. And if you got to pull Christmas out a little bit early, a month and 15 days or so, bring that turkey on. I want some happy vibes. Bring it on.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. I can agree with that.
Take all your Christmas stupid music and just, no.
And besides, this was the only color I had for Jets green after the almost victory last night, right, Kaylee?
Yeah. Let's hop into Monday Night Football. We will get to the Buccaneers because I know Evan has a lot to sound off about. We all have to talk about it. But we'll start with Monday Night Football. The Patriots beat the Jets in a last-minute field goal. Obviously, an almost upset for the Jets. Joe Flacco, an elite quarterback, taking the reins under center.
Whoa.
Wait a minute. Now I'll give her a second. Last night he looked like the Joe Flacco of old, lighting up the skyline in New York.
When Joe Flacco plays the Patriots, he is an elite quarterback. Any other time, he's Joe Flacco. And that's what I'll say about it. And look, he almost pulled the upset where they're still winless. So, but they were 0-8 going into the weekend. So for them, that's a moral victory. I mean, I would say it's something to be happy about. I mean, I know the Patriots are not, overwhelmingly exciting to watch thus far, but you look at Cam Newton, had a pretty good day, even though he didn't look like it. 27 for 35, 274 yards. He didn't throw for a touchdown, but he ran for 2. He had 0 interceptions as well. He didn't turn the ball over like the fumble, in the Bills game. Is this their guy? Because he signed a 1-year contract. There's a lot of questions going around. Is Cam Newton going to stay in New England? Is he going to be their guy for the next 5 years? Or is this a one and done for Cam Newton?
What do you think, Elle Bushman? You want to take that one first? Because I could go on. You look like you're aiming up. You're ramping up to go kill something. So I want to let you take that.
I want to talk about the elite comment.
Okay.
First. Okay. He was elite because he was playing.
One of the worst defenses in the NFL. Yeah.
Yeah, but Joe Flacco's never been elite. Even when he won a Super Bowl, he was never elite. No.
And if you look at his playoff run, I think he threw like 16 touchdowns, 0 interceptions.
Not elite.
In the playoffs, playing the best football of the year.
No, not elite to me. They had a great defense when they won that Super Bowl, and they had the lights that got it in their favor for that Super Bowl against the 49ers. No, not elite. But let's go.
What do you call him then? Game manager?
To me, he's a game manager, and let's put Joe Flacco in like the tier C's of quarterbacks because we haven't seen him play in like forever. He's a tier C quarterback.
If you give him an elite arm, though.
No, I don't.
Because he can throw the ball. What?
Nothing about him is elite. Not the playoff run. Not the arm. Nothing.
Nothing. He's like an Eli Manning. He's like an Eli Manning.
No.
He's a serviceable game manager. He's not elite.
He's not a mouth breather, so he's not like Eli Manning. Yeah.
True. All right, so let's go to the game.
Put Joe Flacco down. Stop punching him in the face. He had a good game.
Yeah.
Let's go to Cam Newton. Do I think he's like the foreseeable future for the Patriots? Not for 5 years, maybe for the next 2 or 3. But I don't. And they played the Jets last night. Like, come on, if you can't beat the Jets, come on. So and you guys almost lost.
Flacco's Jets.
But the Pats almost lost to the Jets. Why are we even talking about the money? It was so bad.
Troll Evan Day because it's
I can't wait for the Buccaneers questions and stuff. But I would say for the answer for the Pats, keep him around for another 2-3 years. You don't have to try and get Trevor Lawrence. That's not your answer. Even the Jets, I don't think need to go tank for Trevor. They don't need to do that. And a lot of people are saying, "Oh well, the Jets they're going to get the number 1 pick." Nah, man, they need to stockpile, draft picks, and trade out of the number 1 spot and just rebuild your team. I mean, that you need to get Adam Gase and your current GM out of there. That's your first order of business before even going into the draft. Like tanking for Trevor, no. If I was Trevor Lawrence, I would stay in college. I wouldn't even go into the draft this coming year. If you
hide, here come the Jets.
Yeah, if you think the Jets are going to draft you, well, I just don't. But you never know. If Adam Gase and their current GM, if they tank and they're going to go in the number 1 spot, they'll probably screw it up and take Trevor Lawrence. So they don't need to. They need to stockpile draft picks and start taking calls if they're going to. Well, I mean, not now, obviously, because we don't know how the season's going to end. But if they end up getting the number 1 pick, I'd start taking calls about, okay, what are you going to give me and everything. But Cam's going to be there for another 2-3 years at best, and then you'll see somebody else take the reins.
Oh, I mean, I think that Josh Daniels, I think that Belichick is really, I mean, like we laughed about it, and I've talked about he's doing more Subway commercials. Bill Belichick is slowly starting to distance himself from this franchise. He's doing things that he's never done. He's coming out in press conferences. He's saying things he's never said. And I think this is a guy that's starting to peer the door open for his exit. He's starting to move things to the side to get out of the way, and Josh McDaniels will take over this club. I think that – what are you doing?
I'm going to go down to Tampa for
So, and I don't think Cam Newton is Josh McDaniels' guy, and usually you have a new coach. He's going to try to find – somebody else to run that team, and maybe Stidham gets another shot. I mean, he was a guy that played okay. He's still a young quarterback, but this was let's be serious. This was a patchwork team coming in. Half their defense set out for COVID. They had no money. They lost their best player. This was a patchwork solution coming into this season. And I think you flip the shoe on the other side, and you go. If you're the Patriots, you go, holy crap, we almost just lost to the Jets. I mean, they did win. Now, ugly wins are still wins in the NFL, and good teams always find a way. So you can build on that and go, that'll, rigmarole. But still.
Cam, what do you think? Do you think Cam is going to be there for the next 5 years, or what's the deal? I mean, they almost lost to the Jets, for God's sake.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is they almost lost to the Jets, and I don't really think it had anything to do with Cam Newton. And that's what I'll say, just based off, he played a clean game. Like, I think against the Bills, obviously, that's a loss that really does fall on him. There's a lot of other games and situations that he's been in that he's really kind of struggled at the goal line. He's looked very offbeat in New England, but that was a game last night that he was not the reason they lost.
He was not at fault.
Their defense is very, very bad. Their defense is bad. They had people opt out. They had people who were hurt. It's a stripped down defense. And I think this team looks very different if you can build that up next year. And I think it's really hard to say this year because Cam Newton, he struggled, but last night was a significant improvement on what he's been doing over the past 3 or 4 weeks. So do I think he's their guy for 5 years? I don't know. But I think it's the picture is going to become more clear next year. I do think he'll be there next year. And I think if they can get their defense back on track, then we'll get to see a little bit more of what that team looks like.
And they'll be better because their defense, Belichick, led teams are always better defensively. And they do have Pro Bowlers that decided to sit this season out. And also, and I talk about it, and we talk about it a lot, is, this is not you're going to another team and every playbook is the same and every system is the same. Cam Newton was a free agent. He hadn't been doing anything. He was given a playbook, hey, you're going to run this offense. And, we're 9 games into a season to where he's been going back and forth with somebody else, maybe not getting all the first team reps some weeks. And, he's still learning a system. So it's not an automatic transition. You're going to be your best player when you go to a new team. So
for sure. And we'll see it. We'll see it happen. Now let's transition over to Evan. Evan is excited to talk about this, I'm sure. The Buccaneers got obliterated by the New Orleans Saints. Obliterated, demolished.
Buried under the stadium.
I can't even find enough words for it. I do want to start, before we get into the actual game and the logistics of the game, I do want to start with former Buccaneers quarterback Jameis Winston. Had probably the best troll of all time. I personally, we've all been waiting for him to blossom and mature as a person, and I think this is where we've seen it because he had the self-control to wait until the New Orleans Saints sweeps the Buccaneers. He's in Raymond James. He waited 9 weeks for this. The self-control Jameis Winston has demonstrated through 9 weeks of the season. I think he's grown. I think he's a new person. And then he ate the W on television. So, Evan, how did that make you feel? Did you watch that live? I'm sure you did. How did that make you feel?
You look like your face is chartreuse right now. It's a different color.
I watched the first half of the game, and then I turned it off at halftime because I was in such disgust of what I saw on the field. And then after, like the next morning, I see dipshit. I gotta censor that out. I'm sorry, Next Door Radio, because we're live. Our replay is on their show tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. on Next Door Radio. Yep. I see. Yeah. Well, I may not. I can't. I don't think I can send this one after I talk about Jameis Winston. Seeing him do that, it's like now you're really kind of like showing who we all thought you were. Like you're an immature meh. And
there you go.
And like for him to do that, do that stupid eating the W thing again. It's like that's you're like the kid that got an A on the project but didn't do anything. That's what Jameis Winston is. That's the kid that sits back and does nothing, and that's the guy on the bench on the Super Bowl that gets a ring anyways because he was just there. He didn't do anything.
He had to hold that clipboard and wear those headphones the whole game, Evan. He had to do that for his team.
Maybe he called plays. Maybe he helped call plays.
So you know what? I always liked him. I was a fan of his in FSU. I tried to give him my all when he was a Buccaneers player, but now he's just a troll, man. Like he'll never be a starter ever again. And you know what?
Wow.
But let's get to the game, man. And
wait a minute. I get a take on this. No. Get a take on this. You know what I'm gonna do?
Get a take.
I'm gonna flip the shoe on the other foot here. And I know you're gonna love it, Evan. But I tell you what, Jameis Winston is a guy that throughout his career in Tampa was always questioned as a quarterback who could ever actually be that quarterback. So he was a guy that threw a ton of interceptions. He was a guy that the fan base kind of embraced, but also was letting him be 1 foot out the door. And the question for the last 2 years of his deal was, why do we still have Jameis Winston? Are we going to pay him this money? We're going to give him $20 million. And he just chucked the ball around and would throw as many interceptions as touchdowns. So I can see where, and Kaylee brought it up, the last 2 years in Tampa, he was kind of, he's been under fire a lot. So he saw the opportune time to kind of laugh and put it in the face. Now, as a person, I don't agree with that because, yes, Al Bushman, you're right. He is a backup quarterback, eating clipboards and drinking Gatorade. Yes. And, hey, I understand that. But I can understand him wanting to let go of some of the way that he was treated the past 2 years. But you're a professional athlete, dude. You're making millions of dollars. You shouldn't let that stuff get to you. But on the other coin, I mean, he's a human being. When people say things about you, you're not a starting quarterback. You make bad decisions. You're making too much money. I can understand him wanting to let go of a little bit of emotion. So
fair. He's a human being, and he's mid-20s. He's a kid, right?
Yes.
All of these guys are children. They are. So,
except Joe Flacco, he's not a child.
Correct. He's a grown man. But back to the game. Obviously, the Buccaneers struggled huge on both sides of the ball, special teams. I mean, they pulled out a field goal, so it wasn't a blowout, but they really did struggle. My biggest question coming out of this game is, well, I have a lot of questions, but the main one is they ran the ball 5 times. That's the lowest in the NFL. That's a record in the league. Okay. You look at their roster, you look at the running backs they have, you look at how that game was going. Why? What happened? What kind of decision was that? And what does that say about the coaching ability of the Buccaneers going forward? We can start with Chip and let Evan.
I think that, one thing, and you see it a lot with teams, and we've seen it, in Dallas, and I hate mentioning that franchise on airtime. It's stupid. But, game script is really important. And the Buccaneers got to a point where they were forced out of their original probably game plan to run the football. Now you pick up a guy like Fournette and you have a Ronald Jones. I think Ali Marpet was missing for this game. He was one of the top running protectors for the game. So I still think that line was capable. I just think they got away from their game script and they kind of just, took a punch in the face and had a hard time figuring out kind of which way to go. So hopefully that changes, but that's what I think happened. Oh boy.
I'm trying to listen. I get it. They had a lot of injuries. They've been dealing with injuries like the whole year, especially on the offensive line.
But who in this league hasn't?
I know.
Exactly.
Kaylee, I'm not. Hold on, you didn't let me finish. I'm not making excuses for the injury part. Not doing it. I'm not going to make excuses for injuries because if you're on an NFL team, you should have depth where you can bring the next guy up to fill in. What I saw was just pure unpreparedness, pure outcoached, watching the first half. This team didn't even look like the Bucs. It looked like a team that didn't even show up. And I said this the last show. Like the defense, their secondary is still suspect, man, and they got burnt again. I'm sorry, Dean. The Bucs play like caca, and I think they're the most overrated team in the league right now. They remind me of when Philadelphia had that dream team when Vince Young said, "Oh, we've got the it factor, we've got the." They remind me of that team because to get blown out and demolished on national television. Get them off primetime games. This is turning into like NFC East games right now with having the Buccaneers. Like they played awful against Chicago. They played awful against the Giants. They played even worse against the Saints. Get them off primetime games because they're not ready for it. They're not ready to show the world what they can do. And you listen, Tom Brady's all nice and being a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, and you can put him on primetime games all day long. But if you're going to play like that, they don't deserve to be on primetime games. And the way they looked like crap. They looked absolutely like dog poo-poo caca. Like I like going forward, and I'm seriously concerned going forward because you got to play Carolina, who's gotten a lot better. You're playing Minnesota. You've got to play Kansas City. Like the Kansas City game, forget about it, man. You're toast. You're toast. And I'm even afraid when Chip, I'm even nervous playing your Atlanta Falcons. I'm nervous going forward because the way they played, they were just unprepared. Their defense, their defense is they were letting guys wide open. Like Drew Brees, shoulder injury. Yeah, okay. Yeah, shoulder injury. Like my frustrations with this team is just it's now turning into they're 6-3. They're a terrible 6-3 team. There, I said it. They're a terrible 6-3 team, and you can take my words to the bank. I don't care. Like I know we're on Bucks Live Media, but they're a terrible 6-3 team, like all day long. Yes, I said dog, poo poo, caca, Charles. Yes.
That's fair. That's fair. And you look at, like you mentioned, the defense. Obviously, that first half was tragic, just terrible because they allowed 31 points. Obviously, their offense didn't put up any points going into the half. But you look at the second half and 7 points in the whole second half, right? Like you look at the score going into half, you look at the final score of the game, and the defense did something. And this is kind of what I've said over the course of the season so far is everything is just very inconsistent. It's up, it's down. One week they look like the best team in the league, and the next week they look like they couldn't beat the Jets. And it's just a roller coaster. And how do you get this team on track if you're going to? Theoretically, you are still, you got swept by the Saints, but you're still in the playoff conversation, obviously, at this point in the season. How do you get them back on track? Where do you focus? How do you get this defense to play like they played against the Packers every single week?
I want to ask you both a question. Do you think they've added too much?
Yes.
Like too much offense. They've added like Antonio Brown. Leonard Fournette's been, he's been doing his thing, but like, I know they've had a lot of injuries too on wide receivers and everything, but it's like it looks like they just added way too much. And it's like, it's almost become an overblown, like you've added too many toppings to the pizza and like the pizza's now becoming greasy. That's what it just like, you've added way too much. Like you're not focusing on where your holes are at, which is in your secondary. You're not focusing on that where you should be maybe adding pieces of that. Maybe like, I don't know. Like right now going forward, it's like, maybe somebody else should be doing the play calling. Maybe Byron Leftwich shouldn't be calling the plays anymore. Like, I don't know what needs to be done. It's frustrating. Listen, let's not take anything away from the Saints. The Saints are a fantastic team. Like they're going to be going deep in the playoffs. They've got the NFC South locked up. Like, not to take anything away from them, but like for the Bucks to go on against, we got Carolina this weekend. Then you've got the Rams and then the Chiefs. It's like, and then you go into a bye, which is great. They need it, but like, it's going forward. These are now iffy games for the Bucks. So I don't know what needs to be done. Chip, I don't know.
This is where you all got to take a step back and you have to realize that, you got punched in the mouth and had a tough time regrouping. And now you really got to come together as a team and you got to look at your individual, units, offense and defense, and you got to freaking pull it together. And I think, and we had a fan pop up with the comments, they were running no press coverage. They were running 2 deep zones. So they would have 2 safeties in the back. And if you give that to Drew Brees, he'll eat bubble gum and he'll be at the freaking, park just hanging out and he will pick it apart, dude. That's what he does. So definitely agree with that. They should have had more press coverage. But look, you got to get your head right now in the NFL short-term memory, dude. Next week is coming up. You plan, you prep, and you execute. And if you're the offense, you definitely need to get on the same page and you need to have the type of performance that totally, just cements who you are as a team. If you're going to run the football, then run it 50 times and shove it down somebody's throat. Come up with an identity because, Bushman, I think you're right. Right now you're focusing on, we got a lot of bells and whistles, wide receivers, everything's going great. Figure out who you are as a team and then don't deviate from that plan and just do that the rest of the year.
When you said they got punched in the mouth, it reminded me of Rocky IV when Ivan Drago killed Apollo.
That's right.
Like, if he dies, he dies. That's what it reminded me of.
He dies. Yeah, buddy, you got to get back up. Everybody gets punched in the mouth. It's how you react after you get punched.
And I think that's a fair point to mention. I do think they have a lot of names and not a lot of foundation. They don't really know what they're trying to do. They just know that they have the people in place. This looks like a fantasy team. If you were playing in a one team league in fantasy, this would be your fantasy team. So it is it's strange to see all of this on paper. And I don't think it's that surprising that it's not working on the field in real life.
That's why my expectations always start at the bottom, and then.
But you have to be. I mean, like you have to give credit to the Saints because this is the first time we're seeing them healthy, right? Like this is a healthy Saints team. Their defense has really improved over the course of the first half of the season. They're a 5-2 team coming into this weekend, and they were really under the radar because they lost to the Raiders, they lost to the Packers. People were just kind of like, "Oh, the Saints." No, this team is very, very good. And now that they're healthy, they're going to be very good for probably the remainder of the season, barring any more serious injury. But it's going to be, I think you're right. I think those games coming up for the Buccaneers were games that you could look at before, with exception of the Chiefs. But coming into week 2 or week 3, you're saying Panthers, Rams, Vikings, winnable games. And now maybe not. Maybe not all of them at least. But let's talk about who really won the weekend. And I think it was young quarterbacks, rookie quarterbacks, first, second-year quarterbacks. Tua Tagovailoa and Kyler Murray. That game really made me excited for the future of the league. I think we're very, very lucky to be in a generation now of NFL quarterbacks that we get to watch these guys grow and change and develop. And Kyler Murray's improvement from year 1 to year 2 is very evident. And I think last night was really, it solidified that. They lost. I think he set like a record for having, the most efficient game and then losing the game. So where do you think Kyler Murray falls in the NFL as a quarterback? Because I think, that's been in question over the past year and a half. But after last night and seeing what he's done the first half of the season, where do you rank Kyler Murray?
I would definitely put him in the top esh. Like he's in that top upper 2 tier, and then he's slowly creeping into like the top tier of quarterbacks, the way he's been playing. And he's playing on an okay Cardinals team. I mean, this offensive line makes him just run for his life all the time. But like the way he's been playing is, and I've been a really big fan of the Cardinals because they're still a young team. They've brought in a lot of talent, but he's just impressing the hell out of everybody. And I think he has the most points scored by a quarterback, I think, ever in NFL history so far. So he's creeping up into that almost elite category where you can put him in with the Russell Wilsons and the Aaron Rodgers, like the way he keeps playing. Even though the Cardinals keep losing, he's still playing like at a top level. So I wouldn't take anything away from him. Like, and I agree with you, Kaylee. Like the way these young guys have really come into the league, like Joe Burrow's, you put him in that conversation too. Like he's on a bad team, but like Joe Burrow makes the Bengals look like a bad team look good because he plays so well, And even Tua impressed me a lot this past Sunday. I mean, he had a really shaky first game, but like the second game he was in, he looked comfortable. He looked well. So I'm excited for the future of NFL quarterbacks. Chip, what about you?
I mean, this is something where Evan, you and I kind of grew up in a realm where the running quarterback, really the first one we kind of saw and kind of locked eyes on. Randall Cunningham, Steve McNair, Michael Vick. These were some of the guys that we saw, and those guys were just amazing athletes. But now the NFL seems to really have kind of turned the page, and you're getting guys now that can do a pocket pass and can do the run. And I mean, really in the next, these quarterbacks are all under 25 years old. So, I mean, technically, if they hopefully don't get injured, I mean, we could see 10 years of just, Kyler Murray, Tua Tagovailoa. We have Lamar Jackson. I mean, you got a ton of guys that are phenomenal athletes. So the NFL really moving forward is blessed, and you can't forget about like Russell Wilson. And I mean, there's still so many great quarterbacks in the league, and so we'll see a lot. Defense is going to have to pick it up here in the next 5-10 years for the NFL because the quarterbacks are unbelievable.
Kaylee, out of the three, like Tua, Joe, and Joe Burrow, and then Justin Herbert, who's been playing really good too. Like out of those three, who's really who's really impressing you the most out of those three, the new guys?
I really say it's like, and like you said, the Bengals are not winning games, but Joe Burrow. If you look at the Bengals, it's hard to remember that they're not winning games. It's easy to forget that they're a 2-win team, right? And so when you look at them, and I think the impact that Joe Burrow has on that team, I would say Joe Burrow as an impact player is the most impressive to me so far this season. I think Kyler Murray is obviously impressive. teams don't want to blitz him. Teams don't know what to do or how to handle him on defense because he is really dangerous as an athlete and as a quarterback. But I think Joe Burrow is going to be, he's a game changer. I think he's someone who's going to take that team and flip it on its head come next year once they figure out, how to protect him, what weapons to put around him, really how to coach a team led by Joe Burrow, which is I think what they're struggling with now is how do you keep him upright? I mean, first of all, how do you keep him safe and not injured, but
not in the hospital?
Not in the hospital. How do you keep him alive? But then how do you coach him? Because I think, we saw them put him out there, give him 30 or 62 pass attempts. That's insanity. And I think they understand that he's capable of that. But I think it really is figuring out who they are as a team led by Joe Burrow. And I think that he's going to have the biggest impact single-handedly on a team. I mean, I like Tua, but their defense in Miami is also lighting it up. And I think they had a lot of help. I mean, that win could really be attributed to the defense and their obviously defensive scoring that happened. But Joe Burrow single-handedly as an impact player. Easily.
Would you guys put him in the conversation for MVP?
Let's transition to MVP talk because there's a lot of, I think, moving pieces in the MVP conversation. Yeah. You have Tua, which I don't even know what it's fair to expect from him at this point. You have Joe Burrow. Josh Allen's back in this conversation. He had a 415-yard game, 3 touchdowns. And then obviously that win is a huge statement for them. And then you have Russell Wilson, who defense is terrible, but he's playing lights out. But it's a hard team to stick together because they have such a terrible defense. So who's leading this MVP conversation?
I mean,
I think you take that one.
Thank you. No, I think some of the younger quarterbacks, offensive rookie of the year, you got to have a guy like Burrow. I think you have Herbert because he's putting his team in a position to win almost every week, and then just bad things are going wrong, things out of his control. So I like those guys for rookie. For MVP, the funny thing is I've been down on Josh Allen for 2 weeks, and it's more strictly fantasy driven. And that's what I think we do when we play fantasy. You're like, what the fuck, dude? You didn't throw any touchdowns. But he always, if a touchdown is not there for him to throw it, he's making decisions not to force throws. He's running. He's doing things. So the performance we talked about, and definitely on Sunday, was this was a statement game for the Bills. They could solidify who they were as a team and put themselves in a spot to show they deserve to be in one of the top teams. And Josh Allen did that. So, I mean, I think right now I'm leaning towards Josh Allen.
Yeah, I think what the game he had against Seattle, which I thought Seattle was, I picked Seattle to win because the Bills have been playing like poo-poo caca. Let me say it again, past couple weeks. I think what Josh Allen did on Sunday was vaulted him over Russell Wilson as the number one guy probably for MVP so far. So I was thoroughly impressed. Whatever adjustments they did in the past couple of weeks in game plan, especially for Seattle, which Seattle's defense is weak anyways. Like he showed out, man. Josh Allen, and Chip, we saw him at the combine, dude, and we were thoroughly impressed with his arm strength, the way he ran, and it was like. We both, me and you both knew that he was going to be something special in the league. So he's definitely vaulted himself in the number one spot to me.
Yeah, and they also killed the Seahawks on the ground as well. So for them to really run an efficient running game and then have Allen throw over 400 yards and 3 touchdowns if they keep playing like that, they're in the conversation of the best team in the league. I mean, they're up there in that conversation. Yeah. The problem is the consistency isn't there the same way it's there with the Steelers, the Chiefs, and other teams that have really kind of taken the lead. But any final thoughts for you guys before we?
Man, just to see the Steelers and Cowboys, I hope the Cowboys, when I heard this morning that Gilbert might not be starting, they might go back to Dalton, and I think that's
so unfortunate.
That's stupid.
Huge mistake. I'm a big fan of Garrett Gilbert, obviously. But yeah. Very, very big mistake.
Huge mistake. I would not do that.
You know what? It's the Cowboys. Who cares? Let them do what they want. Let them do what they want.
But I love Garrett, so I do want him to succeed. I want him to get a win with the Cowboys. Is what I want.
They were this close.
I know.
They were so close. They were so close, but no.
The Colts and the Ravens. Lamar Jackson had an okay game, but the Baltimore defense won that football game. Not Lamar Jackson. Still looked Still not what I thought I would see. Indy has a great defense, so still kind of What's wrong with Lamar?
I want to go to say to Bucks fans out there, for all of you dum-dums that say coaches need to be fired and people need to be fired, relax. It's just
too soon for that.
Yeah, it's relax. It's one game. No, there's a ton of people on Twitter. Coaches need to be fired. Like that's how whiny Bucks fans are. Like,
yeah, we knew that.
Just relax, people. Like, you guys are like the most blow things out of proportion fans I've ever met in my life. Like, just relax. It'll be fine. We'll make the playoffs, and then we'll get outs in the first round. But you know what? It'll be fine. So just pump the brakes there.
That's a good message overall. Everyone breathe. Everyone relax.
That's right.
Regardless of your teams and your affiliations. But
season's halfway over. Still got some time.
It is. A lot of games to be played. So thank you guys for tuning in, everyone in the comments. Catch us on Twitter at SportsCaffeine1, on Facebook, YouTube, and FanStream Sports at Sports Caffeine, and we will catch you guys next week.
Make sure to go to Geology, get your 30% off with
Geology.
Geology. I thought
it's a real word.
It's so close.
Geology.
So close.
Geology.
God bless you. Gesundheit.
I know. 30% off with the promo code caffeine. Go to Manscaped and go to all of our other sponsors. It's too many to name. So we'll see you guys soon. We'll see you guys next week. We're almost out of here. Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Sports Caffeine, available for streaming on FanStreamSports.com and FanStream Sports, the app.